Chapter 121, A Hot Personality. Faye and Aura had entered the final phase of their chase, and the wolf allowed the fox girl to use detection magic as the two were too evenly matched and weren't progressing in the slightest. Naturally, once Faye knew where exactly she had to look, the time for tricks was over, and the two met soon enough. Welcome. Once Faye was allowed to use her detection magic, she quickly pinpointed Aura's location and found her comfortably sitting down in the middle of a massive green field. No rules for us were a bit of a hot-headed oversight, huh? I do admit that I got caught in your pace and hadn't fully thought it through. The red-haired fox nodded. You have a skill for that. I sure have. It was a compliment for her. Should we start with the grand finale? The fox tilted her head. You have found me, but I have yet to be caught. That is true. She nodded once. I assume jumping at you with high speed isn't going to work, huh? The sisters are highly susceptible to it. You can try and embarrass yourself, but that tactic only works on babies. I figured as much. Faye rolled her eyes. Should we add 1 or 2 more rules on how I have to catch you? To avoid another stalemate? That is a good idea. Aura agreed. How about we limit ourselves to this plane? She looked behind her while gesturing at the never-ending green. No world-ending magic either. Seems like a plan to me. The fox nodded. What would count as catching you? A simple tap or a full-on tackle? I want a big fat hug from you. Why? She tilted her head. I thought you preferred my full form? That's the issue you have? The wolf hadn't expected that. It's true, but if I get a hug from you, I have something I can tease Steph with. Oh, okay, that's a reason I can get behind. Faye became a fan of the plan. I'll give you the heartiest hug possible when I get you. You're the best. Her voice was super playful. If you get me. Don't you worry, I'll make sure you can tease Steph plenty later on. Faye's voice had the same ring to it. Ready? Ready. Go. The moment they said the word, the fox instantly jumped at the wolf with a speed that made it look like she broke the sonic barrier. It sounded like it, too. Unfortunately, Aura's reaction was faster. Right before Faye reached her, an earthen wall appeared right in front of her, causing her to crash into it. So you opted to embarrass yourself after all, huh? The wolf smirked at the fox, whose head was sticking out of the other side of the wall right in front of her. I had to give it a try. Saying so, the entire 3-meter wide and 1-meter thick wall exploded into countless pieces, and the fox shot forward even faster. Aura barely managed to dodge to the side and made another big leap to increase the distance between them a little more. Afterward, the wolf created multiple more earth-made walls around her to shield herself from the catapulting fox, who was about to launch herself once again. So trigger-happy. Faye let out another chuckle when she had time for a breather. Let's see, what could we do to oh. Before she was able to finish her sentence, a torrent of water breached the walls and threatened to drown her. Controlling the water herself, Aura held it above her and pushed it over yet another wall and away from her. Immediately after, she jumped right through the wall on her left to free herself from the self-made prison. You won't get away that easily. The fox girl used her power with air magic to tear up the ground left and right of the fleeing wolf. The trenches were about 20 meters wide and 10 meters deep and went on for about a kilometer. It was nothing the wolf couldn't easily jump over, but it carried the message of something worse happening if she did. So Aura continued to run in a straight line for a while longer before coming up with a new plan. Yep, this is a lot more fun. Having a great time, Aura sped up even more, and the curious urge to find out what would happen if she were to cross the trench immediately overcame her. Jumping over it, the wolf got attacked by countless roots that had been laid bare inside the trench. They were about to reach and entangle her, but as it didn't seem like she was into this kind of thing, Aura wrapped herself in a ball of fire and ignited every root that came close to her. Her reflexes are admirable. The red-haired girl had only praise for her. I guess I need to try a little harder. A few moments later, the whole area was bathed in a glaringly bright light. With the use of light-based magic, she turned the entire plane so bright that it was impossible to open one's eyes without them hurting. Being able to see anything had become impossible, too. Blinding me is a creative one. With her eyes firmly shut to protect them, the wolf nodded a couple of times. Though, what's the point? She looked confused. Aren't you hurting yourself with more than you affect me? I'm a wolf, you know? Our hearing might be on par, but my sense of smell is unbeatable. You can't outsmart me on instincts either. Not to mention that we can still use our detection magic. Slightly confused over Faye's tactic, Aura erected an earthen dome all around her to shield herself from the brightness and rest her eyes. Unfortunately, she didn't get the chance to get a breather. Got you. The fox instantly used her fist to break through the earth and filled the entire dome with red-hot fire while she turned off the blinding light. The temperature was so high that even the dirt melted away. I know this won't hurt you, too bad, but it's over now, ah. The smugness in her voice disappeared the second she realized the dome she had melted was empty. In the time between Aura shielding herself from the brightness and Faye breaking through her protection, the wolf had dug herself underground, and all that was left between the molten remains was a wolf-sized hole leading underground. She's such a hot personality. Currently being busy digging a tunnel away from the scene, the wolf had to chuckle at her own stupid joke. Okay, let's get away from her for the time being. Aura sped up her magic-assisted digging. Feeling called out, the hot personality of a girl, Faye lifted her hand over the hole and shot another pillar of fire into it. Alright, let's see where she pops out. She fixed her gaze on the field in front of her while continuing to flood the tunnel with fire. Roughly 30 seconds later, an explosion happened approximately 300 meters to the right of her before a pillar of fire shot out of it. She might be too hot for me. The explosion right before the fire was caused by Aura, who shot out of the ground right before the flames caught up to her. Although, there was a slight scorch mark on the very tip of her tail, so it definitely was a close call. Let's cool her down a bit. Soon after, a 3-meter-high wall made out of stone shot out of the ground and formed a roughly 500-meter-wide circle around the wolf. Afterward, she made a small pedestal for herself and then filled the entire area with water, creating a shallow but massive lake. Are you not a fan of fire? Faye also made herself a pedestal around 200 meters away from the fold and smirked at her. I am. Aura shook her head. I'm not a fan of being set on fire, though. I didn't know you care so deeply about such small details as semantics. This is far from a small detail if you ask me. Really? The fox cutely tilted her head. How do you feel about being steamed, then? Not waiting for her reply, Faye began throwing fire into the water to heat it up. Soon enough, steam began to rise from the entire body of water before it eventually started to boil and bubble violently. Before long, the whole area had turned into a sauna with near zero visibility thanks to the thick steam. I can't say I'm the biggest fan. Aura shook her head. I do like myself a hot bath every now and then, but this might be a bit much. I think we should chill it a little. Having had enough of her surroundings, she concentrated for a moment, and the water around her pedestal began to freeze. Pouring even more power into it, half of the lake was soon frozen while the other half was still boiling. Well, ice seems more your style. That is indeed true. The fox couldn't blame her for not liking the steam. In all fairness, I like your side better, too. The fluffy girl also was a fan of the ice. Not today, though. Trying her best to win against the spreading ice of the wolf, Faye increased her fire to fight back. The heat and cold went back and forth for a long while. At times, more of the water was frozen, while in other moments, more of it was boiling, but it roughly always stayed at 50 to 50. To ensure that, both girls poured more and more power into their magic. Too much power. As it became more and more violent, it got more unstable, as well. Super cold and hot water and/or ice often don't get along too well, either. As a result of that, things soon went past the critical levels and exploded. A massive steam explosion occurred, eradicated the entire makeshift lake, and took the two girls with them. Once things calmed down, The duo was lying at the bottom of the 800-meter-wide crater with a dizzy-looking Faye on top of the equally disheveled wolf. Whether it was a draw or the win of the fox had yet to be determined, but the answer would most likely vary depending on who one would ask. Chapter 122, Accepting Defeat. The chase between Aura and Faye reached its explosive finale, literally, and once they made it through the violent and massive steam explosion that took out both, they still needed to settle on who won and who lost. There is no way I accept defeat here. The two had crawled out of the crater they had accidentally created and were in the middle of an argument as if nothing happened. The best I'll accept is a draw. Aura vehemently shook her head. What do you mean, best you can accept? Faye glared at her. It's crystal clear that you lost. It was by mere chance that you landed on top of me. I still would have won if you landed on top of me, you know? The fox slowly shook her head. How does that make any sense? The wolf loudly disagreed. The goal was to catch you, and that usually happens by touching the person running away. It doesn't really matter how one gets touched, does it? I even went ahead and gave you a little squeeze to make sure and clear your hug requirement. She had a hard time finding a compelling argument. So, do you admit defeat? Faye grinned at her. Never. Her pride didn't allow her to do so. Stop being so stubborn. You are part of the group who isn't allowed to call others stubborn. What's that supposed to mean? Faye just stared right at her. You know exactly what I mean. After having agreed to disagree on the outcome of their chase, the duo returned to the others on the island. Congratulations on your victory. That was amazing. The sisters immediately surrounded Faye and clapped their hands. Heh. With an expression full of smug, she just smirked at the wolf. Grr. Aura growled back at her. It was a draw. How was that a draw? Sophia and Steph looked confused. Because we took each other out. So? The two only got more confused. It was a chase, was it not? The dog girl shrugged. The goal was for Faye to catch you. The blonde did the same. Not who was better in the admittedly very impressive magic showdown. The female wolf went silent. Those sisters have some redeeming features, after all. Faye was proud of them. Hey! The two didn't like her wording. That being said, Aura was literally playing around with you until it changed into more of a regular magic match. Fen sided with his wolf. You would have had no chance if Aura didn't want to have more fun during your contest. That is regrettably true. The red-haired girl had to agree. Though, I feel like I have to say that I think she also would have had a hard time finding me if the roles were reversed. Should we give it a try? The female wolf stared at the fox. I'd like to see if that constellation would also end in a draw. She still couldn't accept it. It wasn't a draw. Faye raised her voice. My victory even was confirmed by the sisters. Since when do you listen to them? The expression of the red fox turned awkward. When they're right, they're right. Oi. The girls in question didn't like the look on her face and the stutter she had. Actually, we think it might be a draw, after all. It's a good thing I rarely listen to either of you. Faye's mood instantly changed to playful again. You're the worst. The sister telepathy was going strong today. Can you even still call this hide and seek or a chase? Chloe joined the conversation while she was still looking over the edge of the island and down on the destroyed battlefield they turned the plane below them into. Of course. Faye, Aura, Fen, and Steph didn't see the issue. It looked amazing, and I really want to play around with magic together with both of you, but I have to side with our lovely pink ball of fluff here. Sophia nodded a couple of times while looking at Chloe. You two were just playing around and having fun. Nothing wrong with that, but both of you had forgotten about the objective halfway in. Ah. Both turned their head away from the blonde as they had a hard time refuting her argument. This is the grown-up version of hide and seek. Steph tried to defend them because she loved to play like that, too. Now, grown-up hide and seek is something else entirely. Maya lightly shook her head without elaborating further. Ah, true, you're right about that. The dog girl just nodded in agreement. I mean, it's great that you're having fun, but it seems a little excessive. Chloe also loved using magic and getting carried away with it, but usually not in overly offensive ways. Hearing that from you, miss, I have no sense of holding back, that really is something else. Faye stared at her daughter with big eyes. Exactly. The pink girl nodded. Also, good luck on telling me to hold back the next time I have a fun idea I want to try, Faye. I've made a horrible mistake. She hung her head in return. Okay, hear me out, alright? Yes? Chloe tilted her head. Steph already knows about it from our previous chases, and I told Sophia, too, but when I'm inside a domain, I'm not nearly as strict when it comes to magic usage. Well, duh. The pink fox pointed down the island, at the massive field of destruction, while continuing to stare at her. I kinda figured that part already. Ahaha. She awkwardly scratched her cheek. Outside, in the regular world, I worry that I might have an impact on something I shouldn't, thanks to my ties to Mira, the overseer of magic. Destroying an ecosystem or two could have serious consequences, as well. Those are things I don't have to worry about when we're inside the domain of an overseer. Worry a little. Sophia didn't like the last part. And I told you that it's not a big deal even in the regular world. Mira smiled at her. It's a resilient place, that world of yours. Nothing too bad would happen if you let loose. You're just saying that because it would be interesting for you to watch. Faye glared at her. Yup. Stupid overseers and their constant desire to be entertained, the red fox let out a sigh. It's in our nature. Mira simply smiled at her before looking at Sophia. Right? Leave me out of this. The blonde vehemently shook her head. I'm no overseer. You do love to be entertained, though. Chloe saw the connection. So do you. Sophia stared right at her. As do Fen, Aura, Steph, Anna, as well as Maya, and Ari to some degree. Her gaze wandered between all of them while saying so. Okay, fair point. The pink fox had to give that round to her. Anyway, so as long as I stay within Sophia's domain, I can do whatever I want with magic, and you won't ever complain? She focused on Faye again. Yes. She nodded. In fact, I would welcome it. The more you power yourself out there, the tamer you will be in the regular world. We'll see about that. Chloe took it as a challenge. You can do the same in my domain, by the way. Mira didn't want to be left out. I'd love it if you have your own little area in my place. Sure. She smiled at her. I want to start with Sophia's domain, though. I want to be a part of its founding to boast about it later on when it inevitably becomes famous. You love to hear it. The blonde gave her a thumbs up. I have just the idea for you, too. Faye agreed to also build her own biome in my domain under the condition of doing it together with her. Let's go. Chloe liked the plan very much and looked at the red fox with sparkling eyes. I thought you didn't want to get involved in her place? Mira seemed surprised about it. Sophia tricked me into it. Faye just lightly shook her head. Ah, okay, that makes more sense. Ehe. Sophia looked rather proud of herself while smirking at them. Let's do it, Faye. Chloe was excitedly circling around her mother. Please. I mean, I never go back on my word, even if my opponent cheated. She glared at Sophia once more. Yes, let's build something together soon. Yay. The pink fox was quite happy about it. Let's start with it immediately once I'm done with the place Finfin and I are doing right now. There's absolutely no rush. If it were for her, she'd prefer it to not happen, after all. You're just hoping I forget about it if enough time passes. I would never. Feeling caught by her own daughter, Faye turned her head away. Gore. Chloe didn't believe her. How about, after that, the three of us build something together in my domain, then? Mira smiled at her daughter while pointing at the red fox. Oh. Chloe's eyes were sparkling again. That sounds lovely. I'd love to do that. I really can't say no to that, either. Faye reacted with a wry smile. It does sound like an endearing activity with the two of you, though. She absolutely had nothing against family bonding time. I'd like to create something worthwhile, though. Something we still can enjoy a long time away from now on. Not simply going as wild with magic as possible. I can't wait. The pink fox was okay with that. I already know that it will be my new most liked place inside my domain. The family continued to bond for a little while longer before they eventually put the topic on hold for the time being. Afterward, they all returned to the cottage and had dinner together to finish off quite an eventful day. Chapter 123, Idiot Proofing. The group congratulated Faye on her victory against Aura in the chase, even though the female wolf didn't accept her loss, and some of the girls had some doubts about it having been a chase in the first place. It had ended up being more of a magic showdown, after all. Afterward, Chloe bonded a little more with her parents before they ended the day by having dinner together. Sophia, we have a problem. On the morning after the grand chase, Aura, together with Ari, stood in front of the blonde in the cottage's hallway. Yes? She tilted her head in return. What's wrong? 2 of the portals you made for me stopped working. It seemed like a serious issue for the wolf. Really? That sounds odd. Sophia looked confused. That's never happened before. Can you show me? Of course. Saying so, Aura guided her to their portal hub. By the way, you really have to clean up this place. Once they arrived there, Ari used the chance to get Sophia to bring some order into the mess she had created. It's just portal after portal without any order whatsoever. She pointed at the at least 50 of them all around them. Last time I wanted to go somewhere, it took me like 4 times to find the right one. Ahaha, the blonde scratched her cheek. All of the portals are my creation and connected to me, so I know where they lead to, so I never had an issue with that. It's a big issue for everyone else, though. The jaguar raised her voice a little. Is that so? The tiger looked at Aura for confirmation. It's the slightest bit confusing at times, yes. She nodded. Alright, next time I have some free time, I'll make a couple of signs. Thank you. Ari smiled at her in return. Anyway, let's focus on your problem for now. Sophia then focused on the wolf again. Yes. Nodding once, Faye turned to her left and gestured at 2 portals there. Those 2 were supposed to lead to my pine forest, but when you try to step through, they don't let you. That's weird. The blonde got closer to the portals and placed her hand on one. Curiously enough, she indeed wasn't able to push her hand through it. Yeah, it's disabled. Why, though? The wolf was curious about the reason. Inside my domain, those portals are a little more advanced because they belong to it and follow its rules. I have no idea what any of this means. Aura only got confused. The portal knows when the other side is dangerous and prevents the users from subjecting themselves to something that could lead to them getting hurt. How would it be dangerous? The wolf tilted her head. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment. Both places are still on fire, so it would hurt quite a lot when the portal would be open and let you through. That's handy. Aura was impressed for a moment. Thank you for idiot-proofing this place. Ari clapped her hands. The idiot, me, is very happy about that. You're very welcome. The tiger smiled at her. Both places are still burning? Even ground zero where we started the fire? I would have guessed everything is burned down there by now. The wolf was surprised to hear it. I guess my trees are even sturdier than we thought, huh? She looked at Ari during the last part. As expected from you and your magic. The jaguar wasn't surprised. Dot. She was happy to hear it. I guess we'll just have to give it more time, then. You know, Ari's complained about the messy portal situation and now this. Sophia scratched her cheek. I've been playing around with see-through portals lately and had a lot of fun with it. Actually, seeing where the portal leads to would be even better than signs, wouldn't it? That's a great idea. Ari was a big fan of the suggestion. I'll do the others later, but let's have a look at the dangerous one here. While saying so, the tiger put her hand on the portal once more, and after a few moments, the sparkly pink inside slowly began to change. It soon changed into a flickering orange and red hue, and it became visible that the portal led to a flaming inferno that one definitely should avoid visiting for the time being. Once again, thank you so much for idiot-proofing them. Seeing what was happening on the other side, Ari raised her voice by a good bit. Fascinating. Aura was a lot more relaxed about it. Well, I guess we have to wait a little longer to regrow the forest to even higher glory for a bit longer, then. Ari, how about we fully focus on our other project for today instead? Okay. She reacted with a big nod. What else, other than burning down my domain, are you two up to? Sophia got interested in and concerned about whatever else they were doing. Our dearest jaguar here wanted to have a rainforest to please the ancestors inside her, and I'm helping her with it. Yes. What about the one around our cottage? The blonde tilted her head. It's not rainforest-y enough. Ari energetically shook her head. It's more of a jungle, after all. Alright, all the power to you. She wasn't going to stop her. Thanks. Okay, let's have some fun. Saying so, Aura got behind the jaguar and pushed her through another portal. Enjoy. Sophia just waved after them. A few moments later, they returned for some reason, though. Wrong portal. The duo then disappeared through another one right next to it. Huh. Awkwardly scratching her cheek, Sophia then spent the next hour making all the existing portals see-through before returning to the cottage. All alone? Back in the cottage's living room, the blonde ran into her fellow tiger, Anna. Yeah. She nodded. I thought about getting in some more training with Mira, but after I saw her disappearing with New Fae through the portal to her domain, I didn't feel like interrupting whatever they planned to do. The princess thought she'd be a bother. That's, probably for the best. The shorter tiger nodded a couple of times. Who knows what their plans were? I have a pretty good idea. Yep. Sophia just kept nodding. What were you doing with Mira, anyway? I just barely overheard that you had spent the day with her yesterday. I had her teach me magic. Seriously? Sophia got loud. Well, okay, only how to properly detect and measure its level in the area without seeing it, as that's not possible for me. Ah, I see. She calmed down a little. That's still amazing. Also, being able to see it isn't that much of a help past a certain point, because you literally go blind if there's too much magic around you. Mira mentioned that, too. Anna smiled at her. Was there a specific reason you wanted to get better at that? The blonde got curious again. Initially, I wanted to ask her if it was possible to use that magic stone we found below your cherry forest to keep storing my magic to be able to use its reserves to create a massive biome for myself in one go. And? It's possible, but it doesn't make much sense in Myra's eyes. It would be much easier to simply release my internal magic as ambient magic in the area I want my biome and keep doing that until it's enough. As long as I don't give the ambient magic a purpose, it seems to stay in the area as long as I want it to. Once the levels are high enough, I could get started without having to use the stone, of which we don't know how much it holds, anyway. Oh, that's just what I did with the cherry blossoms. I can attest that this method works. Mira said so, too, so I'm sure of it. The princess gave her a thumbs up. You have the benefit of a much larger capacity and near-instant regeneration, though. Because of that, it will take me a lot longer. She then hung her head a little. That is true, but even if you had more, you'd want to spend more, too, so the problem will always stay the same. I mean, I feel the same way, even with my powers. Next to Mira, I feel downright insignificant. There's always someone better than you, huh? To be fair, Myra's a bit of an extreme comparison. Then again, in absolute terms, I'm beyond privileged already, so I shouldn't complain, either. Anna was aware that both were having some high-level complaints others could only dream of. That is very much the case here. The blonde could only agree with her. Anyway, how did the training go? Did you learn how to gauge magic levels properly? Yes. She vigorously nodded. Mira even praised me for my skills. That's awesome. Sophia lightly clapped her hands. How far apart can you tell the levels? Yesterday, I managed to get just shy of 200 times my maximum power. I hope to get even better with more training. She sounded very motivated. What the dash? The blonde got loud. That's way more than I can. You do have over 10 times my magic power, so it's not that much in total terms. That's still a whole lot. It wasn't any less of an achievement for the shorter tiger. I was completely overwhelmed when I was in an area with about 30 times my power, so I'd guess we're about on the same level, absolutely speaking. Even though I'm much weaker than you? Not the word I would have used, but yeah, you have a lot less magic at your disposal, but you're that sensitive to it. I wonder if it scales with power at all. The princess tilted her head. I wonder if I could sense it even better with more internal magic. I'd love to find out, but I'm still too weak to boost you more at the moment. Sophia shook her head. Maybe sometime in the future again. That wasn't my intention. The tall tiger rapidly shook her head. I wasn't begging, just curious. Don't worry, I wasn't accusing you, either. She had to chuckle at the panicking princess. Now I want to see you in action, though. Let's go somewhere else and see who can sense magic levels better. Okay. Having decided on their spontaneous date, the two tigers left the cottage to play around with their magic. Chapter 124, Stamina. Aura and Ari wanted to check on the pine forest they burned down, but got confused over the fact that the portals leading there didn't let them go through. With the help of Sophia, they found out that the forest was still burning, and the portals deactivated themselves to keep the girls away from harm. While she was at it, the blonde also turned the portals see-through, so that they were less confusing, before spending the rest of the day with Anna to play with magic together with her. Let's go. Roughly an hour before Sophia helped Ari and Aura, Chloe dragged Finn to the portal hub to go to their ongoing project. I want to see if we were able to create our mountain range. Calm down. It's not going to run away. Finn wasn't one to hurry. But we'll need like half an hour to find the right portal and get there, so there's no time to waste. Alright, that's a fair point. The wolf looked at the many dozens of portals all around them while nodding a few times. Let's make sure to properly complain to Sophia about that soon. Absolutely. The fox agreed with him, and the two then went through the first portal they thought would lead to their project. The two returned to the portal hub rather swiftly, but managed to find the right one after only 4 more tries, and finally made it to the area where they were planning to make the cozy snowy mountain hut relaxation place. Wow. Arriving there, Chloe's eyes immediately grew wide. I'm in awe. Finn also was pleasantly surprised when he looked at the scenery around them. The plateau they planned to place the hut on was still slightly empty. Only a couple of needle-leaf trees had grown so far as they only managed to pour out the little remaining magic power they had when they finished up the other day. That wasn't the cause of their reaction, though. A little further away, in a circle roughly 10 kilometers all around them, was a new mountain range that covered the whole horizon. The height varied a little in some areas, but it seemed about 1 to 2 kilometers high. Some plants were growing on the sides of the range. Especially the ground layer was covered in them, but most of it in the higher areas was just gray rocks without any sign of snow around the summit area, either. This is way better than I had hoped it to be. Chloe's eyes were sparkling. The mountains are perfect. I can't believe well, mostly yours, magic was enough to create all this. The wolf was surprised by just how much the area had changed. Creating so much material to form this massive mountain range should be much more costly. Well, we're inside Sophia's domain. The fox smiled at him. How surprising would it really be if magic were to behave all funky in here? It would be surprising if it weren't true. He nodded. It's still puzzling, though, but I can accept a Sophia place behaving like Sophia, so it's perfectly understandable. Hee hee. She let out a small chuckle, before focusing on the mountains again. It would have been even better if they came with snow already. Debatable. Fen didn't share her opinion. For visual purposes. She lightly glared at him. There's no need for you to go there just to have it look nice. That's somewhat acceptable. Are the mountains not high enough for natural snow? Chloe tilted her head. In the regular world, they might not be high enough, though that heavily depends on the climate. He paused for a moment. Well, something like an actual climate doesn't really exist in this place yet, so. That's a good point. The fox looked up at the sky, or rather the all-white lack of it. There's nothing that could naturally create snow, huh? Not that the mountains have been created naturally. The wolf rolled his eyes. Ahaha. Chloe let out another chuckle. Anyway, don't worry, I'll take care of putting snow on the mountains. However, I'll need Sophia's help. I'll ask her to place multiple dozens of portals all over the place for me to use. I'll die if I have to walk everywhere. It would be good for you to gain some more stamina, though. Fen stared right at her. She just turned her head away. This is too much of a challenge. So weak. I know. She nodded. Almost as weak as you when it comes to snow or other cold things. I should have seen that one coming. Fen sounded ever so slightly awkward as he had nothing to defend himself with. Anyway, should we do the forest and the river around here first? Chloe dropped the topic and pointed all around her. The hut should be right in the middle, where we are right now, so the river should be nearby, too. Sounds like a plan to me. The wolf agreed with her. To make it more natural, I suggest the river should start somewhere in the mountain range and then have it go through the entire plain. That would look amazing. Chloe smiled at him. Let's do it like that. How do we do it, though? Fen tilted his head. In my other forest, Ari and I dug out the riverbed and then filled it with water. I have nothing against manual labor, but I do, though. I figured, so let me finish. He rolled his eyes. There has to be a more, magical approach to it. I like that a lot more. Chloe went back to smiling. Sophia said that it's possible for magic to create a continuous source of water. If that's true, we should probably put it somewhere on the mountain range. It might help if we carve a little trench along the plateau to guide the direction of the future river. A valid point. The wolf liked her addition. Judging by what we did so far, it might be enough to release our magic alongside the trench to have it grow later on. Just what I was about to suggest, too. The fox nodded a couple of times. Okay, let's try it out. Let's go. Afterward, Chloe waited for Fen to change to his big mode to jump on his back. Once he did so, the duo sped to the edge of the plateau where the mountain range started. How about we mark this the end and walk over to the other side while roughly carving the path for the river and releasing bits of our magic? Fen was thinking about their next steps. Sounds good to me. Both of us are going to walk, though. On our own feet. The wolf stared at her. It's just 20 kilometers. Maybe 25 or, at best, 30 if we add some bends to the river. Chloe's face scrunched up. If it's okay with you that it'll take a couple of hours. I'm in no rush, and you need to get every bit of exercise you can. Are you calling me fat? The fox instantly got loud. How did you come to that conclusion? He looked confused. I'm calling you lazy, untrained, and in dire need of more stamina. She wasn't sure if that was any better. As he was right, all she could do was change her expression into a pout, though. Alright, let's go. Saying so, Fen simply began walking away from her. Wait for me. The fox quickly ran after him, and the duo continued to walk next to each other towards the center of the plateau. While slowly moving forward, Fen used a bit of his magic to carve a roughly 1 meter wide and 50 cm deep trench into the ground behind them while Chloe released bits of her internal authority alongside it. With that, we're back at the hut location. A few hours had passed since then when Fen announced their arrival at the portal in the middle of the plateau. Does the river really need that many twists and turns? Looking and sounding rather exhausted, Chloe looked back at their path so far and how wiggly the trench they made was. I think it's like twice as long and bendy as it needed to be. No, I think it's perfect like that. The wolf shook his head. It looks more natural like that. You just wanted me to walk more. The fox saw through his intent. That is an utterly baseless accusation. Is that so? Of course. He just nodded. Now, we have to keep it going like that, too. If the second half of the river becomes straight now, it would look really weird. His plan was flawless. I would usually agree that everything straight is weird, but Chloe scratched her cheek. I guess it's better not to change that behavior, either. It wasn't for the reasons the wolf intended, but she agreed to keep going the way they did before. Another couple of hours passed before they eventually arrived at the other side of the plateau from where they initially started. I was just about to run out of magic, so that was perfect. Fen sounded quite satisfied. I was just about to run out of my will to live. Chloe strongly disagreed with him. Thanks to the twists, it was way more than the distance you told me. It sure was. He nodded. I didn't keep track of the exact distance, but I'd guess we walked for about 50 to 60 kilometers. Don't sound so smug about it. She got loud. You're still alive, and it was a good endurance training for you, so keep quiet. Grr. You think that growling at me, a wolf, will do much? I think I could beat you. Really? Fen stared at her. Sure, your magic is more potent, but will you be able to catch me? So, how do we do this perpetual water source idea to feed the river? The wolf ignored her reaction and looked up the mountain in front of them. A small lake where we create some water and pump a good bit of magic into while thinking it should keep going and only to disappear once it reaches the end of the river? That's how I'd do it. Chloe nodded. Okay, let's give it a try. Afterward, the two dug out a little pond and used their magic to fill it with water to the point it overflowed into the trench they made the past couple of hours. While doing that for a while and watching the water travel down the plateau, the duo also released more of their internal magic into the pond while hoping it would keep going forever and continuously keeping the river alive and filled. Chapter 125, The Joys of Spelunking. Fan and Chloe spent the day working on their wintry holiday home and finished making the outline for the river that is supposed to go through the plateau inside their freshly created mountain range they willed into existence with magic. Alright, let's have a strategy meeting. Hiding from the others, Steph and Maya used a portal to the capital and sat down in the mansion's living room, where the dog girl stared at the cat with a most serious expression. Sure. Maya smiled at her. Wait, about what? The amazing pink cave we found. Ah. She nodded. The tentacles, I got it. The whole face situation got us pretty distracted, but we still have to get Sophia and Chloe over there. True. The cat girl nodded. Should we get Ari and Anna, as well? The more the merrier. Steph was an immediate fan of the suggestion. Although, as much as I love and adore Ari, I think we should only invite her after we took our girls first. She has a good influence on Sophia, and we absolutely don't need that for our endeavor. You are good. Maya seemed impressed. I'm learning from the best. The dog girl gave her a thumbs up. Ari also easily goes with the flow. So, if we get Sophia on our side, she'll definitely get curious. Especially because I know Anna will be regardless. Perfect. Okay, with that decided, how do we get our girls in there? That's the question. Maya scratched her cheek. Carefully, I guess. Well, duh. The dog girl rolled her eyes. Tricking them isn't an option, either. They have to agree to it, after all. Forcing them is out of the question. She shook her head. We couldn't even if we wanted to. The two of us combined are still weaker than them. Maya agreed with her. Good point. But, yes, consent is important and key here. She felt the same as Steph on the matter. Maybe a little tricking? Steph's expression turned mischievous. How so? The cat girl tilted her head. We can't make them agree to do it with us, but we can make them go there without knowing why and what's waiting for them. Why would that help us? If we just tell them that we found a tentacle cave, there's like zero chance for them to go with us. Steph shook her head. Okay, Chloe might be curious, because she's a massive pervert, but what do you think Sophia would do? Ah, good point. Maya finally understood her. She definitely wouldn't come with us. That's why we won't mention where we're going. The dog girl lightly clapped her hands. Problem solved. Is it? The cat girl had her doubts. They'll definitely get suspicious if we just tell them to let's go somewhere without elaborating on where part. We're still talking about Sophia and Chloe, you know? Steph didn't understand her reaction. Oh my gosh, Maya and I found the most amazing thing ever. You two have to see it immediately. You absolutely won't believe it until you see it with your own eyes. She then made a slight pause. Afterward, both their eyes will be sparkling in anticipation, and they're raring to go. They'll be way too curious and distracted to ask questions. You know what, I tip my imaginary hat to you. Maya had to give it to her. You are absolutely correct on that. They love exploring and seeing interesting things, way too much to pass on that. Also, that underground forest near it was genuinely amazing, and we can show that to them first. And then we go like, oh, what's that cave over there? The dog girl finished her sentence. Bam, our win. Exactly. They couldn't help but shake hands afterward. Now we just have to find the right time when nothing's going on to take them on a trip. Maya sounded super energetic. Which might be a tough thing. Ahaha, the cat girl scratched her cheek. True that. Before that, should we go and take another look at the cave? Steph tilted her head. Horny? Always. The dog girl had no idea why she even asked. That's not what I meant, though. What did you mean, then? When we found the cave, we got so excited we immediately left to get our girls. We still need to see how it or they work, don't we? That is true. Maya nodded. Important, too. She raised her voice a little. Vital, even. I need to know how those tentacles operate. After all, I'm out if they're somewhat sentient and do their own thing. They have to be lifeless until I control them with magic. I need to be in charge of them. Why would they be sentient? Steph looked confused. I've watched a ton of videos from your old world. We're talking about porn, right? Absolutely. The cat girl nodded. The tentacles in those movies were definitely sentient. Ah, I see where you're coming from. The dog girl totally saw those movies, as well. Don't get me wrong, it was super hot, and I enjoyed it a lot. You enjoyed it, or yourself? Yes. Maya smiled at her. I enjoyed Sophia while watching it, too. Ahaha. Anyway, it was great to watch, but I don't want to partake in it if the tentacles are doing something to me and or Sophia on their own. I want to use the tentacles to do something to me and or Sophia. That's a crucial distinction for me. Steph paused for a moment to think about it. You want them to be an extension of yourself or a quite elaborate toy and not a separate entity? Exactly. You know what, more than fair. The dog could follow her logic. Now that you've mentioned it, I feel the same. One of us needs to be in charge and control of the tentacle, or else it wouldn't feel right. I'm happy we're on the same page. She smiled at her partner in crime. Alright, shall we head over? Let's go. Steph energetically raised her arm high in the air. The duo returned to the cottage and then took one of the portals to Myra's domain that the overseer had provided for them. Luckily, they didn't take the one to the teal fox's hut, so she and Faye wouldn't get interrupted. You still remember where it was, right? The two were back in the dense forest inside Myra's domain, where they last explored and ended up finding, or digging into, a massive ravine with its own forest growing on its bottom. I thought you remembered? The dog girl raised her voice. Now what? And no way. Devastated over the turn of events, Steph dramatically fell to her knees. I'm kidding, idiot. She lightly rolled her eyes while smiling at her. Don't you remember that we marked our way when we headed back to the portal? Saying so, she pointed in front of them, where a lone stick was driven into the ground, together with an arrow drawn into the ground below it. Right. The dog girl instantly jumped back on her feet. Don't scare me like that. You sure are cute. Maya liked her reaction. I'm Sophia's little sister, after all. She gave her a thumbs up. Yup, that explains it. The cat girl saw no flaw in her logic. Would be weird if she were the only adorable one in the family. They're all adorable. Having settled that debate, the duo got back on track and followed their markers to reach the ravine where they found the goodies. Yeah, we can definitely trick them into coming here. Having climbed down the ravine, Maya looked around and nodded a couple of times. This place, with the massive overhang of rocks together with the forest growing here, looks amazing. Absolutely. Steph thought so, too. I love the indirect lighting, because the sun has to go through the ravine to illuminate anything down here. I won't even feel bad getting the girls here, because they'll like it. Hee hee. The dog girl smiled at her. Shall we head over to the main attraction? She then pointed at the other side of the small forest, where the tunnel entrance to the cave was. Sure. Traversing the forest and entering the tunnel, the duo followed it for a while before eventually arriving in the cave of their desire. It was a massive cave where the color pink was ever so present. All over the place were hundreds of pink tentacle-shaped vines, with a diameter of a couple of centimeters, hanging from the ceiling. Rather than something alien, they seemed to be plant-based, though. The ceiling of the cave was covered in green lichen-like plants, and the tentacles seemed to be its outgrowths. They just happened to be pink and wiggly, and their ends or tips were suspiciously shaped like something else. Nature knew exactly what they were doing when they made this plant. Steph lightly rolled her eyes while looking at some of the details of the tentacles. I wonder if nature was called Mira in this instance. The cat girl wasn't sure this was a natural plant. I can't argue with that. She nodded. It's looking good, though. They wiggle around a little, probably because of the wind down here, but it doesn't seem like they have a will of their own. Saying so, Steph moved closer to the nearest tentacle and gently touched it with one finger. Oh, it's slippery. Yeah, they're definitely not entirely naturally grown. Maya was convinced of it now. Ah, you're right, they are slippery. She went ahead and touched one, too. The tentacle itself is pretty squishy, too. Still firm, but not hard at all. It feels just like some of the toys we have. There was a sense of familiarity that she liked. It's perfect. The dog girl felt the same. How do we control them, though? She continued to poke the tentacle, but it only wiggled a little more in return. I have been playing around with nature magic a little recently. Maya scratched her cheek. That could work, I guess. Saying so, she grabbed one of the tentacles and concentrated for a moment. Then, it began to wiggle way more actively before the lower half of it curled upward. Another second later, it moved towards Steph, and the tip lightly slapped her cheek. Oi. She got loud in return. Wait, how did you do that? Hee hee. Maya reacted with a smug smile. You pour a little bit of your internal magic into it while imagining how you want to move it. I need some more training because it was a lot more awkward than I had imagined, but it's rather easy. Awesome. With sparkling eyes, Steph also grabbed a tentacle and did the same as the cat girl, which also resulted in Maya being slapped with it. It works. Yep, I deserved that. She couldn't blame her. Speaking of training, Steph's expression turned cheeky. Shall we give them a go? Maya looked at the wiggling tentacles, including the one in her hand, before facing the excited dog girl. Look, it seems like it would be fun, but you're still the sister of my girlfriend. That wasn't what I meant. Steph shook her head. I wasn't going to control your tentacles. We're our own player here. If all of us were here, it maybe would be a little different, but with just the two of us, it would be in the weird territory. She felt similarly on the topic. How about we go on opposite ends of the cave? We couldn't even see each other because of all the tentacles hanging from the ceiling. Dividing the cave with earth magic and making 2 rooms would be another option. That way, it's no different from our cottage, where we all know what's going on in the other rooms during the night, too. Maya didn't say anything and just looked around in the cave. Let's go. Let's go. As the day was still young, there was still lots of exploring in the cave left to be done. Chapter 126, A Tiger's Playground. Maya and Steph went to visit the tentacle cave they found the other day to see how it really worked before they got too excited the last time and left before they had the chance to explore everything. As it turned out, it was perfect on various levels, and the cat girl got the urge to question Mira about how natural that cave really was. Other urges were had, too. Fulfilled, as well. By the way, what type of biome are you planning to save up for? Sophia and Anna had moved to an empty part of the blonde's domain, where she became curious about the princess's plans. A savanna. The tall tiger smiled at her. Dry grasslands as far as you can see, lots of shrubs, acacia trees, sandy bits, an oasis scattered here and there, and maybe a mountain range in the distance to distract the eye. Ho! Sophia's entire body perked up, and even her tail went stiff and pointed up. The tiger bits have been tickled, huh? Anna understood her reaction. Very much so. The blonde's voice was filled with excitement. The jungle Maya and Ari made scratched a lot of itches, but somehow, a savanna has been calling for me ever since we started playing in your domain thingy. I like the jungle a whole lot, but now that I've heard you saying it, yes. Sophia nodded a couple of times. This is such a great idea. Thank you. Anna was happy that her idea was liked so much by her. Do you really want to do all of it on your own? Sophia tilted her head. I'd love to help you with it. Let's make the most amazing place for tigers together. I mean, it's totally okay if you want it to be your solo project like my cherry blossom forest, but I just had to ask because my inner tiger is way too excited right now. It would be fun to make something together with someone, just like everyone else already did. A fellow tiger who understands the appeal of a savanna only makes it better, too. The princess wasn't against the idea. I'll be in charge, though. I want to take care of the design and how it's going to look. You can help, but it's my project. Oh ho, I like the assertive boss lady Anna. Sophia seemed to be a fan of tall and beautiful girls wielding authority. I'm absolutely fine with that. Awesome. How big do you want it to be? To see how far away we should go from everyone else. Yes. Anna's reply was instantaneous. A yes distance away from the others, huh? The blonde tilted her head. Sure, that can be arranged. Saying so, another portal appeared in front of the two. Lead the way, boss. You're the best. Nodding once, the princess stepped through the portal before the blonde quickly followed after her. Yep, that's a whole lot of nothing here. Arriving at the other side and being greeted by the all-white nothingness, Anna had little else to say. We're also at least a whole continent's worth of distance away from everything else. Seriously? The tall tiger raised her voice. Yes, enough on the size and distance from the others? Sophia just smiled at her. Barely. I like the confidence. Hee hee. Anna let out a small chuckle. By the way, how do we get started on the savanna? Step 1 starts with a disappointment. The blonde's expression turned a little awkward. Let's start with step 2, then. The princess wasn't a fan. That could prove difficult. What's the issue? When starting a new biome, we need some samples and a base to start. Unfortunately, we haven't been to a savanna yet, so we don't have any trees or other flora specific to it that we could use. Oh, I can help with that. It didn't seem to be an issue for her. Have you secretly been to a savanna and hid a bit of it somewhere? Sophia looked confused. Something like that, yeah. She actually nodded. Eh? After Mira taught me how to hone my magic sensing skills, I told her about my plans in more detail and how badly I wanted to have my own savanna. She then generously gave me a little plot in her domain I could use to gather inspiration. We're free to take whatever we need from there. Nice. Sophia clapped her hands. Let's go. All right. The princess was just as motivated. We have to head back to the cottage to take her portal, though. While we're at it, let's link this place to the portal hub. Saying so, Sophia opened yet another portal in front of them. This way. Can we put the portal somewhere on the side or something like that? The hub is so confusing that I always get lost when trying to go somewhere. You haven't seen my most recent modifications yet. The blonde smiled at her. It's much easier to find your way now. Awesome. The duo then went through the portal to take a look at the new hub and head over to Myra's domain. Tada! Arriving there, Sophia gave her a thumbs up while looking rather smug. I made the portals on this side see-through. That way, we can see where it leads to Dot. I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, I only recently figured out how to do it. It's perfect for this, isn't it? Absolutely. Anna nodded. Not just for knowing where the portal leads to, but it's also reassuring to see where you end up. It makes it a lot less weird. You have a good point there. The blonde nodded. I think we should only use them like this from now on. We really should. The tall tiger agreed with her. You should also do the same for the portal connection between the cities and the capital. Again, seeing where you end up makes this a lot more accessible and less frightening. People will be a lot less hesitant to use them like that. There's the princess mode, huh? Even thinking about that when I had completely forgotten about that project. Sophia scratched her cheek. You are right about that, though. She nodded in agreement. It is a little intimidating to step into solid-looking pink and purple particles without knowing what's going on. I tend to forget about that because I'm using them constantly. You're also the one who invented them. That, too, helps. Well, it's a good thing we only visited one city so far, huh? And, judging by our progress so far, it will take another year to arrive at the next one. Anna lightly rolled her eyes. Ah. The blonde got a little awkward again. To be fair, we're having a great time in my domain, creating all sorts of stuff, no? Rather than exploring a world, we're literally creating one right now. I wasn't complaining. The princess smiled at her in return. It's amazing in here. That being said, I still would like to travel my kingdom a little more and visit more cities. Fair enough. Sophia couldn't blame her for that. I want to train Ellie a little more and make the bestest savannah possible with you, but we should be back to traveling soon. Sounds good to me. Anna liked the plan. Alright, let's head to Myra's place and borrow some inspiration. Let's go. Having returned to the cottage, the two then went through one of the portals Mira provided for them to go to the area the overseer gave the princess. Nice, we can absolutely work with that. Arriving there, Sophia looked at the roughly 200 by 200 meter patch of savanna in the middle of a regular green plain. There were a handful of acacia trees in varying sizes, a couple of spiky shrubbery, and lots of dry grass and reddish dirt. Did Mira make that just for you? Maybe? The princess tilted her head. It was already there when she brought me here, but we're talking about Mira here. I wouldn't be surprised if she could prepare this in a fraction of a second. You have a point there. The blonde thought so, too. She sure is something else. I bet it's so much fun to have that amount of magic to play with. I feel the same about you in that regard. Anna just stared at her. Alright, let's grab the stuff and get started. She didn't want to warm up that topic again. Okay. Afterward, Sophia created a single massive portal the size of the savanna patch and transported the whole area to her own domain, only leaving behind a circular crater in the middle of the plain. Well then, let's hear your plan for this? Back in Sophia's domain, the short tiger pointed at the patch of savanna biome before gesturing at the all-white nothingness around it. How do you want it to look? An excellent question. You have no idea, do you? The blonde had a feeling that her reaction meant something along the lines of that. I do. She shook her head. I have the perfect picture in my mind, but it's hard to put into words. Understandable, I often have the same issue. Sophia felt her struggles. Good news is that you don't have to. What does that mean? If you simply concentrate on the image while releasing your magic, it will turn into something resembling it closer than any words could describe. That's the foundation of magic, after all. Let's go. She instantly got even more motivated. How are you going to help, then? I'll be your magic supply. The blonde smiled at her. Give me your hand, and while you release your magic and think about the savannah, I'll pour my magic into you, refilling your powers until I run out, too. That works? The last time I did that with Fan, I almost blew up the beast folk continent, but I'm sure it's fine this time. Huh? Don't worry about it. No, there's lots to worry about in that sentence. It's fine. She just shook her head. Magic doesn't explode as easily in my domain, and you also have less power than Fenny. But. Let's go. Not giving her any more room to complain, Sophia grabbed the hand of the princess, and they started the preparations for the new tiger savannah. Chapter 127, Savannah Time. Sophia and Anna spent some time together, and the princess told the blonde about her plans to create a massive savannah in her domain. Being a fellow tiger, the shorter girl was a massive fan of the idea and instantly offered her help. A couple of days had passed since the tigers started working on their little project, but progress came to a bit of a halt because, after the initial creation, they focused on filling the area with ambient magic to do a big chunk in on go once they had amassed enough. Sophia. Once again, the blonde was approached by a needlessly dramatic-sounding aura. Your domain is broken again. When is it not broken in your eyes? She took the baseless accusation personally. She's right, though. Ari, who was next to the wolf, sided with her. What did you two troublemakers do this time? The blonde raised her voice. Hey! The jaguar didn't like being addressed like that. Complaint denied. She shook her head. In fact, you, Ari, probably went rogue the most in my domain. Everyone may have done one thing out of proportion, but you are partially responsible for the overgrown jungle around the cottage and helped burn down an entire biome. The number one troublemaker had nothing to defend herself with. There lies the issue, though. Aura stared at the tiger. Something's wrong with your domain because my forest is still burning. It's a big forest you made there. It will take a while before it all burns down. The blonde didn't see the issue. But the portal to the very middle of the place, where we started to fire, is still just showing a flaming inferno on the other side. The wolf wasn't happy with her explanation. Well, you used a healthy amount of magic when you created the trees, and, just like you, they won't go down without a fight. You just have to wait a little longer. Sophia smiled at her. Fine. Aura gave up. Ari, my dear, it will be another rainforest day. Yay! The jaguar liked the sound of that, and the duo swiftly left the tiger. The blonde let out a small sigh when she was alone. How am I going to tell her that the two perfectly balanced out the fire and the magical regeneration of the trees, creating a perpetual fiery hellscape on accident? As it was her domain, she naturally knew what was going on but just shrugged it off. Well, it's fine. It's certainly one of the more interesting places in here now. She paused for a second. Whatever, Savannah time. Saying so, she went to get Anna so they could work on their project some more. I hate everything about this. While Sophia was chatting with Aura and Ari, Chloe and Fen were together and working on their holiday home. It didn't seem like the wolf was enjoying himself, though. Come on, don't be like that. The pink fox smiled at him while concentrating on the snowstorm she was creating in front of them. I'm just covering the forest in a layer of snow. It's not going to hurt you. Shush. He didn't like how smug she looked. Just because it can't hurt me, it doesn't mean I have to like it. You'd really think that you, as such a fluffy wolf, would enjoy snow a lot more. And you'd be wrong. Fen shook his head. It's just a personal preference of mine. I prefer dry heat, hence why Sophia found me in the monster country. That place was hell. Chloe had a strong reaction to it. I liked the animals, I'm still upset that I didn't get to pet a griffin, but the climate was the worst. It's just a little warm there. It's not going to hurt you. the wolf had to do it. I sure felt like dying, though. The fox only got loud. I accept the comeback, though. Fair enough, I guess. Everyone has things they're good and bad with. And things they like and dislike. Fen nodded along. You are very right. She gave him a thumbs up. Anyway, you'll be fine. I'll keep the area directly around us snow-free until our cozy log cabin is done. Once it's here, you don't have to be outside anymore, and you can simply enjoy the view from the inside while relaxing in front of the warm fireplace. It will be well worth the current suffering. Yes, that's what keeps me going. Having put aside their differences, the duo kept working on their place for a while longer, although Finn decided to focus all of his attention on finishing the river that was flowing through the plateau. Having initially created it with magic worked extraordinarily well, but he decided to make some manual adjustments near the place for their log cabin to make it look extra nice in the immediate vicinity. While the duo was working on their holiday home, Sophia arrived at the savannah she was helping Anna build and lightly greeted the tall tiger who was already there. You're late. The princess was happy to see her. I see where Ellie got that from. The blonde smiled back at her. She's a lot cuter when she does it. Shut up. Everything that she does is cute in your eyes. Good point. Sophia had nothing to say in her defense. Anyway, I don't remember agreeing on a time to meet up. Unimportant and minor details. Yep, definitely sisters. She saw a definite similarity between the two princesses. Anyway, it's looking quite nice around here already, huh? The blonde looked at the extensive savanna around them. The many acacia trees, lots of shrubbery, some spiky and some not, and the dry grasslands on reddish-brown earth, together with some spots of sandy or rocky areas, filled her with joy. Yes. Anna reacted with a big nod. Aside from the sky, it's lovely. She lightly gestured up while saying so. The usual issue, huh? She glanced at the all-white nothingness above them. You know, this place might be ideal for an experiment. It wouldn't really work in the other places, but the sky above a savanna is pretty basic in some way, no? I guess. The princess seemed confused. A simple blue sky, not clouds and the like, would be enough, wouldn't it? Plenty better than white, that's for sure. We might have to use up all of the magic we saved in the area, though. But we, especially you, have released so much the last couple of days to make a massive advancement in one go. Anna wasn't an immediate fan of the idea. I'm not even sure if it's enough. The blonde scratched her cheek. It was just a suggestion, too. It's also your decision, as this is your project. We can continue on the savannah itself, or we can try and create something that loosely resembles a sky. It seemed to be a difficult decision for the princess. Your place will be the first that has a sky, by the way. She tried to sell the idea to her. All right, let's go. It was enough to convince her. What do we have to do? An excellent question. Sophia just nodded. I have no idea. Well, that's helpful. Anna rolled her eyes. Blue. She suddenly raised her arm high into the air and pointed at the all-white space above them. Unfortunately, it didn't end up changing colors. She still summoned something blue, though. Their favorite blue parakeet appeared out of nowhere and landed on top of her outstretched hand. At the same time, it cutely tilted its head to the side while looking at the princess. It also made a couple of confused-sounding chirps. Close enough. The blonde was impressed. We weren't talking about you, though, Blue. She smiled at the bird, who then flew over to her and landed on her shoulder before rubbing its head against her cheek. Anna and I are trying to make the sky blue. In return to that, the bird nodded a couple of times. How did you even hear us? Were you hiding somewhere nearby? The princess got suspicious about the parakeet, which only lightly flapped its wings while tilting its head to the side once again. That bird is way too cheeky. It's great, isn't it? As she wasn't on the receiving end of it, the blonde was a big fan of Blue's cheekiness. So, what do you think about our plan, my dearest of birds? She glanced at the parakeet on her shoulder, who then looked up at the default whiteness of the domain above them. It didn't react in any other way, though. Blue, as an expert in all things blue, were open to any hints possible. Anna tried to appeal to the bird. With how much magic our beloved bird has, I'm sure it's capable of a trick or two. It's probably smarter than the two of us combined, too. Hearing that, the parakeet just nodded a couple of times while letting out some chirps, as well. Oi. To what part did you nod just now? Now that the blonde was included, she suddenly liked Blue's sass a lot less. Coincidentally, the parakeet just added another nod, as if simply saying yes, before flying away from Sophia's shoulder. Afterward, the bird circled above them a couple of times before eventually landing on top of Anna's head, right between her ears, before chirping a few more times. Do you have any translation for that? Anna addressed the blonde. Nope. She shook her head. If I had to take a guess, as Blue flew above us, it wants us to concentrate our magic on that area. If we use all we have inside of us, together with what we have already poured into the area while thinking about Blue, it may work out. It won't be a real sky, but it might be easier on the eyes. What do you think? Sophia looked at the bird on top of Anna's head, who simply nodded. I guess it's worth a try. The princess had nothing against the idea. Having decided on a course of action, the duo spent the next hour transporting all the magic in and around them high in the sky while thinking about the color blue, as the bird Blue was giving them moral support by being its adorable self. Chapter 128, Blue. Everyone continued to work on their biome projects, and the two tigers were especially active with them. Having gotten tired of the all-white nothingness above them, Sophia suggested to try and create a fake blue sky, as their savanna wouldn't need any clouds and the likes to make it look natural. With the help of their favorite parakeet, Blue, the duo tried to paint the sky blue with their magic. It's actually working. The tigers returned to the savanna the following day, and Sophia was fascinated by the new sights above them. I was expecting a bit more blue, though. Anna was also looking at the sky, but she wasn't entirely happy with the very pale blue above them. Don't get me wrong, this already is incomparably better than the pure white, but it's still kinda white. It's more of a hint of blue. That's probably because the magic we amassed wasn't nearly enough to make it have the same color as a regular cloudless blue sky. It was so much, though. If anything, I'm shocked it worked at all. The blonde was surprised about something else instead. Admittedly, it doesn't look that good right now, but it should be decent if we do the same 2 or 3 more times. That's one hungry sky. It yearns for magic. Sophia nodded a couple of times. Should we keep feeding the sky, or do you want to do some more savanna building? I think we should keep feeling blue. The princess smiled at her. Sorry, I had to do it. Totally fine. The blonde liked the playful tiger. It will probably take a week or 2, though. That's fine by me. Anna didn't mind it. I don't want the savanna as fast as possible. I want it as best as possible. That's the spirit. That gives me some more time to think about the details and placement of things, too. This might be the best opportunity to do some more traveling. Sophia lightly clapped her hands. Being in the regular world is the best way to reset and amass some good amount of magic. Also, there's a new technique I want to try to get magic into the domain, so that would be perfect. Do you think the others also feel like traveling? Should be. The blonde nodded. Steph definitely would love it, and Maya hasn't really started anything in here, so she shouldn't care. Chloe and Fen are waiting for that log cabin for their holiday home, which I still don't get why they need a holiday home together, but all the power to them, I guess. On top of that, Aura and Ari are waiting for their forest to stop burning, Sue. She scratched her cheek, already knowing that it would never stop. Additionally, the mom foxes are so busy with each other after Faye turned humanoid that they won't accompany us, anyway. I wonder if Chloe will get a little sister soon. Anna knew what she was talking about. Ahaha. She had to chuckle at that. I guess being humanoid has some benefits in those areas, huh? Not that I necessarily want to know how fools have fun, but I assume the activities are a little more basic there. So, traveling time? The princess didn't feel like continuing the topic. Traveling. Sophia also happily dropped it. The tigers finished up on their project for the day and returned to the cottage. However, before that, Sophia went and collected the others to tell them about the plans. Let's go. Hearing the suggestion of resuming their travels, Steph immediately got excited over it. The domain is amazingly fun, but I've been waiting to see more of the other world. Seems like a great idea to me. Chloe agreed with her. It really has been some time, and I also would like to see more of the area. Feifei already has shown me so much of the world, but there's so much more left to see. I wouldn't mind seeing more either. Maya just nodded. Same. Ari did the same. As long as we can skip the snowy mountain range. She remembered where they left off the last time. I won't be accepting any more snow near me for the rest of the year. A very valid point. The cat girl liked her condition. Let's definitely skip the mountains. I support this idea, too. The princess also had enough of it. That should be arrangeable. Sophia smiled at her fellow cats. Once we're back on the mountain, I'll take another portal stone and throw it so fast and far that it will end up in the future. She gave them a thumbs up. Or maybe a couple of kilometers away, so we skip the mountain range. Whatever I can achieve the fastest, I guess. I'm hoping for the time travel. The dog girl preferred the interesting sounding option. I'll try my best. Once we're on the other side, could we try to head over to a city from Father's list? I know we agreed that we wouldn't specifically go for them, but I'd really like to visit another city. Sure thing. The blonde smiled at her. If you can guide us to one, that is. The princess scratched her cheek. Ari, please help, okay? Of course. The jaguar nodded. Once I find a point of interest I can categorize, that is. Thank you. It was good enough for her. I'll join you once the portal out of the snow is ready. Finn joined the conversation while shaking his head. The pink ball of fluff already subjected me to enough lately, so I'm done with it. There was always a healthy distance between you and it. Chloe glared at him. Stop whining, Fin. Speaking about whining, how long will it take before you ask Aura or me for a ride, because we're walking too much during our travels? He stared back at her. She went silent. They get along well, huh? Steph smiled at her sister. True. She nodded. They always have been, too. I don't mind if you ride on me. Aura was okay with being a taxi. Yay. Chloe happily clapped her hands. Don't spoil her so much. The male wolf shook his head. She has to get some more stamina. True. Steph suddenly nodded. Hey. The pink fox didn't like that. What? The dog girl tilted her head. You getting more stamina is an absolute win for me. For various reasons. Her expression turned into a smirk. With that, I mean horny reasons. There was absolutely no need to elaborate. Ari shook her head. We all know. Better make sure. Steph didn't care about her objection. I mean, I'm sure you also would like to have Anna more stamina, right? For various reasons. The jaguar went silent. As if you could handle playing with me any longer. The princess didn't appreciate the baseless slander and glared at her girlfriend in return. She continued to stay silent. Stamina training, it is. The dog girl clapped her hands. Let's go. Should we head out right now? Sophia's eyes wandered between all of them. It's still early, after all. Sure. No one had anything against it. BRRR. Arriving in the mountain range, specifically in the cherry blossom valley inside it, all the cats had the same reaction. Shush. Steph and Chloe just rolled their eyes. Babies. Aura also sided with the cold enthusiasts. It's not even cold at all. You're 70% fluff and fur. Anna, Ari, Maya, and Sophia unionized and glared at her. To be fair, in our defense, it is a lot colder than the cottage area from my domain. That's just because it's too warm there. Her sister didn't accept the excuse. Anyway, let's get out of here. The blonde didn't feel like entertaining the topic any longer. I just need to know in which direction, though. She looked around while awkwardly scratching her cheek. It might be a shock to some, but I'm actually not that good with directions. It's a shock to no one. They all shook their heads. Fair enough. She couldn't blame them for their reaction. So, which direction would lead out of the mountain range? We came from there, Sue, Chloe pointed to her right before turning around. If I had to take an uneducated guess, this would lead to the other side. Yes. The others just nodded. Okay, that lines up with my detection magic. Sophia ignored the condescending tone in their voices and simply continued as she had no intention of improving her directional awareness anytime soon. I can sense a little city around 30 kilometers in that direction. Alright, let's go that way. Saying so, the blonde took one of her enchanted portal stones out of her storage and did a quick warm-up exercise with her right arm. A few moments later, she roughly imitated the movements of a baseball pitcher and sent the stone flying in the direction everyone was pointing and where she detected the city. After around a minute, she gestured for everyone to return through the portal they came from to relocate to wherever the stone ended up in through her portal hub on the other side. There, they also picked up Fen, who had refused to go to the mountain range before, and everyone looked at the new portal while Sophia made it see-through, revealing what was on the other side, yet another simple green plain with a couple of trees sprinkled here and there. They walked through it to finally resume their exploration after a long time of having gotten sidetracked by virtually everything. Chapter 129, Shortcuts. The group decided to finally resume their exploration of the regular world as their biome projects were taking some extra time to finish as they didn't have enough magic at their disposal. As the cats and Fan didn't want to deal with the cold mountain range anymore and decided to skip it entirely, the blonde took a portal stone and threw it to the other side of it to directly continue from there. By the way, have you been in this area before? While the group was walking through the plain where the tiger's portal stone had ended up in, Sophia turned to look at Chloe. You and Faye visited all kinds of places together, right? No, the fox shook her head. We came from a different route before we arrived in the village we met. Actually, we were planning to go this way, too, after Faye finished her business in the human capital. It's new for me, too. Ah, too bad. The blonde looked a little disappointed. I was hoping for a little guidance to interesting places. I don't mind taking it slowly, but if it's nothing but green plains for 80% of the time, I have a feeling that we're back to my domain and playing with our biomes fairly soon. Don't get me wrong, I love plains as a filler, and we're going to have plenty in said domain, too, but they're a little boring. That is true. Steph chimed in. It's a great place to run around and play fetch, but it's nothing new or fancy. Her inner dog got out for a moment. The plain we're in right now might as well be in our old world, and I wouldn't notice it. We are in the middle of the continent in an area with a temperate climate. Aura lightly shook her head. At least from what I remember, aside from some scattered places here and there, plains and regular forests are the dominant biomes around. Exactly what I didn't want to hear. The blonde hung her head. I think we need to come up with a better way to explore this continent. Or, at the very least, the less interesting parts of it. I'm all ears. The dog girl liked the way this was going. Me, too. Chloe felt the same. What's the plan? I just said that we need to come up with something. Sophia got loud. What made you think I know a solution? She shook her head. The best solution would be somehow being able to skip the boring parts in one way or another, like the mountain range that we just did? Ari tilted her head. That wasn't a boring place. Steph disagreed with her. Though, I understand the intent, and that should work, shouldn't it? She tilted her head while looking at her sister. Whenever it gets boring, we throw a portal stone as far away as we can to skip an area. How far could you throw it? I wonder if there's actually a limit. Sophia paused for a moment. I mean, physical strength aside, it's just a matter of using enough magic to keep it flying. That's true. The dog girl nodded. I wonder if I could throw a rock into space. The blonde suddenly looked up at the sky. Oh. Steph and Chloe seemed to like the idea. No, Maya and Ari didn't share the reaction and just shook their heads instead. Ahaha. Sophia let out a small chuckle. Anyway, there are some issues with using the portal stones to skip areas. Really? Her sister couldn't think of any on the spot. We could miss interesting places, but we still could do so while walking regularly, so that's not as bad. In which direction should we skip, though? I mean, I would get lost regardless, but there's no way anyone could keep track of our position after a couple of skips. Then, there's the biggest issue of all. What if I hit someone with the portal stone when it lands? There's a high chance it could kill a person. Huh. The dog girl thought about it for a moment. Those are indeed some issues. Well, hitting someone seems rather unlikely, but I feel like you shouldn't chance it, either. Exactly. You didn't seem to have cared about that when we left the mountain range, tough. Ari looked at her. Well, the destination of where I threw the portal was within my detection range, so I knew that no one was around. Sophia just smiled at her. Ah, that makes sense. Isn't that already the solution for this problem? Maya tilted her head. If we only skip as far as your detection magic works, you can easily avoid harming someone. That is true. The blonde liked the suggestion. My detection range also is over 150 kilometers at the moment, so we could skip some decent chunks. Actually, that would be too much already. If we do a bit of exploring every 50 or so kilometers, we should be fine. Let's go. The dog girl immediately got excited again. Not that she ever stopped in the first place. There's still the issue of having no idea in which direction to go and or getting lost. Sophia slowly shook her head. How about a map? Ari tried one of her logical ideas. Do you have one? Ah. The jaguar noticed a flaw in her suggestion. We could just make a quick trip to the capital and ask Father for a detailed map of the entire kingdom. Anna gave them a thumbs up. Perks of having a connection with a princess and all. Awesome idea. Sophia clapped her hands in glee. Now, let's go. Steph gave it another try. Let's go. Makes one think why we never took a map with us when we left the capital, huh? Maya leaned over to Ari while rolling her eyes. Kind of, yeah. The jaguar nodded. We did leave in a bit of a hurry because everyone was so excited, so that definitely played a part there. True. Having decided on a course of action, the group returned to their travels more motivated than ever. As they were still getting closer to the city Sophia had detected with her magic, the group decided to go there first before giving the portal skips a try. By the way, does anyone know the name of the city we're heading to? The group had been walking through the green plain for a while when Sophia eventually got curious about the place they were going to. Why do you want to know? The jaguar tilted her head. It's not like you're going to remember it anyway. I've never been so hurt in my life. She had a rather dramatic reaction to the accusation. Am I wrong? Ari didn't buy any of that. This and that are unrelated. They are not. She was just shaking her head while looking at the short tiger. Sophia had no chance of winning against her. So, what's the name? She still wanted to know, though. It should be Igona. The jaguar let out a small sigh before continuing. It's a medium-sized city a little secluded from other places as it's close to the usually impassable mountain range and thus can only be reached from the other side. Oh, I see. Sophia nodded a few times. Is it on the list of places Menzer would like a portal? She then looked at Maya, who was keeping said list safe for her. Let me see. The cat girl pulled a piece of paper out of her pocket and unfolded it. Yup, it's right here. She showed it to her while pointing at a specific name. Perfect. Sophia then faced Anna for some reason. Dearest and most beloved princess of ours, I'm counting on you to explain everything to the mayor of the place once more. Ha, she let out a small sigh in return. Alright, I'll tell the mayor about our portal plans and linking their city with the capital. Under one condition, though. Tell me what the city is called again. Ari told you only a minute ago, so I'm sure you remember, right? The blonde froze, before awkwardly turning her head away. There's just no way you've forgotten it already? Anna couldn't believe her fellow tiger. It's seriously been literally a minute at best. Oh look, I have other qualities. Sophia got defensive. Names just isn't one of them. Well, I guess you'll have to explain it to the mayor, then. Gore. The blonde growled at her. Wait, the last time, I got Menzer from the capital and had him explain it. Problem solved. Her expression turned smug. You're so insufferable. Anna gave up on her. We still need to take her to a doctor because of this, don't we? Maya leaned over to Ari again. I'm worried that she might have some sort of brain damage. Yes, it's becoming more and more concerning. The jaguar nodded in agreement. Oi. Sophia glared at them. Don't worry. We'll love and support you no matter what the results of the examination are. The two smiled back at her. As there was nothing the blonde could say there anymore, she simply sped up towards the city before the others hurriedly followed after her. Being teased and showered in love at the same time was still one of her biggest weaknesses. Right after being unable to remember random names and places, that is. Chapter 130, Is Your Head Okay? While walking towards the beast folk city on the other side of the mountain range, Sophia had already gotten bored from walking through green plains that had no excitement in them whatsoever. Thinking about it for a while together with the group, they decided to use the blonde's portals to skip boring parts of their travels by throwing an enchanted portal stone into the far distance and continuing from wherever it landed. To make it a little less random, they also decided to get a map of the kingdom, though. Could we start from the beginning again? The group arrived at the city, and after entering it, Anna, Ari, Sophia, and Maya immediately went to the mayor's place to get over with it. Meeting up with the middle-aged catman with receding black hair, who was leading the city and going by the name of Timo and explaining the situation, he could only react by folding his hands over his head while looking extremely confused. Also, what is that, and how did the blonde tiger disappear through it? Timo then pointed at a portal in the corner of the room. I think I actually hate Sophia. Anna hung her head. She has no intention of helping, but she sure knows how to make the situation even more complicated. Ahaha, Maya could only awkwardly scratch her cheek as there was no way she could defend her girlfriend there. To be fair, it is easier to explain things without her around. Ari scratched her cheek. That being said, she could have gone outside the room to use the portal for a less shocking effect, so Anna's 100% correct there. Anyway, Anna rolled her eyes before facing the mayor again. Well, we are here under the direct order of Father, King Menzer, to propose a one-of-a-kind opportunity to forever change and better the kingdom. The tiger entered princess mode. Menzer, my beloved and most favorite king there is. Back in the capital, Sophia had stormed the castle and barged into his office without any announcement whatsoever. I hate everything about that. Being used to it already, Menzer only lifted his head while preparing himself to rub his temples in anticipation of the guaranteed headache he was going to get in the upcoming 23 seconds. I missed you, too. The blonde started pouting. What's up with the uncalled for hostility? Really? He stared right at her. With an entrance like that, which usually means a lot of work on my end, it's very called for. It seems a lot more than usual. That might be because of what you did to Ellie. He let out a defeated sigh. I showered her in nothing but love. Sophia took offense to the way he worded his sentence. I'm talking about the part where you're teaching her magic. Menzer shook his head. It's not helping her rebellious phase. Is our princess a little mischievous? The blonde's expression turned smug. Every single time I leave my office, she suddenly jumps out from behind a potted plant and hits me with a blast of air before immediately disappearing again. Afterward, I have to fix my hair and clothes while explaining to my retainers what happened and why Ellie can use chantless magic. To be fair, fixing your hair shouldn't take that long, no? She took a glance at the king's ever so slightly receding hairline. Oi. The aura around Menzer suddenly turned cold. Ah, okay, I admit, that was stepping over the line. The blonde threw up her hands. I apologize for that. Any sort of hair loss is your fault in the first place. You've made me age at least 20 years already, and constantly rubbing my temples from coping with the things you do is far from helping. He still sounded quite upset. Ahaha, sorry about that. Saying so, Sophia walked up to his desk, reached over it, and placed her hand on top of the king's head. A moment later, it was briefly bathed in a pale blue light before the blonde let go of his head again and sat down on the chair at the opposite side of the desk. What did you just do? His anger turned into confusion. Don't worry about it. She just smiled at him. You'll see tomorrow. I have a bad feeling about this. You should have a better outlook in life. The blonde was still smiling. You're making it really hard for me to try. He was not. By the way, it's your fault that Ellie is playing tricks on you, you know? Sophia dropped the topic. How is that my fault? She just wants attention. She shook her head a couple of times. She's upset that you don't spend enough time with her. Before, she gave you the cold shoulder in return, and now, it's mischievous magic. Menzer hung his head in return. It's not easy being a king, you know? You have more than capable retainers. The blonde didn't accept that. You don't have to be a king all day, every day. Be a dad for an hour or two a day, and more on the weekends. You might have a point there. I not might have a point. I do have one. She stared right at him. And if you disagree, I'll personally make sure you go fully bald before the month is over. I'll teach Ellie more than just mischievous magic, too. Yes, you are right. He gave her a slight nod. I'll make sure to find some time for her. Good. Okay, I'll do my best, but for now. Why are you here? The king wanted to know the reason for her visit. I'm sure it wasn't for reprimanding me. I hope. I mean, that's always a good reason, but you are right. That wasn't the issue. Sophia gave him a cheeky smile for a moment. We've arrived at the next city for the portal project. Oh. His mood improved significantly, and he leaned forward on the chair he was sitting in to show his interest. Which city is it? No idea. The blonde shrugged. I forgot the name the moment I heard it. Is your head okay? He got loud. I don't like how many people are asking that. Is there anything notable about the city that could help me? He just continued. After we left the previous place where we placed a portal, whose name I also don't remember, we eventually found a massive mountain range. You visited Sava, and there's a range a good bit north of it. From my knowledge, there shouldn't be any city from my list in that area, though. The city is on the other side of it. Sophia shook her head. We passed over the mountain range and continued our travels from there. That one's supposed to be impassable. Menzer got loud. That's why there's a terribly long road leading around it. Are you really surprised that our group simply climbed over it? She stared at him while shrugging again. Go on. He noticed how stupid his reaction was. Was there anything of interest up there? Your group is the first that ever passed it. That's not true. She shook her head. We found definite evidence that something or someone was up there before us. We found an artificially created tunnel through one of the mountains. No idea who or what, but it seemed like someone powerful was up there before. I don't like anything about that. The king wasn't a fan of how that sounded. There are more of your kind? How rude. The blonde disliked his wording. I mean, there's Faye, Aura, and Fen in our group alone, who all could do that with ease. There surely are more like them out there. A frightening thought. Menzer shuddered. Other than that, the mountain range was just cold and full of snow. I don't really recommend it. She hadn't been a fan of it, after all. Oh, but in the middle of it, there was a stunning cherry blossom forest on a plateau. No idea how that worked out to be there, but I loved it a whole lot. That is certainly interesting. The king wasn't sure what to do with this information. So, you crossed the mountain range and found a city nearby? Yup. If I assume you crossed the range in a straight line, it should be, dash. I don't do anything straight. Sophia interrupted him while shaking her head. Huh. Well, even if not, the only option would still be Igona. He just rolled his eyes while continuing. Medium-sized city, relatively close to the foot of the range? The name doesn't ring a bell, but the place sounds like that, yeah. Have you met the mayor already and told them about the project? Anna and the others are currently with him. She gave him a thumbs up. I came to get you so that you can explain the full plan to him. I simply can't be bothered, after all. You do know that you are the worst, right? He slowly shook his head in return. I have heard that before, yes. She shrugged. I have to deny that claim, though. After all, it's me who suggested the plan to better the entire kingdom. For that alone, I simply can't be the worst. There might be some attitude issues that I have no plans of fixing, but I'm not the worst. How are you that self-aware and still be the way you are? Pure skill. He sounded more and more tired. So, we have to head over there right now? Exactly. The blonde nodded. Oh, before that, I need a full map of the entire kingdom. What for? Menzo looked confused. We're trying to plan our route a little better and want to make sure not to miss any important places when we skip boring areas. That makes sense. Sure, that can be arranged. I'll tell our head cartographer to have it prepared for you immediately. Awesome. Once those topics were taken care of, Menzer informed some of his retainers about the situation before he left for Igona, together with Sophia.